I think George Zimmerman is a man whose heart was in the right place, but just got displaced by the vandalism in the neighborhoods and wanting to catch these people so badly that he went above and beyond what he really should have done.
It was those kind of forgiving comments, if you will, from that juror in the Zimmerman trial, Juror B29, our identity obviously shaded, that really prompted yet another juror to speak out. We are now hearing for the first time from Juror B29. She, the only minority on the all-female jury, and she said she felt the need to come forward because she wanted to make sure that the public knew that that first juror who you just saw there did not speak for her. I want to bring Andrew back in for more on this.
And as this first juror now who has actually shown her face on camera, she did so and expressed regret and sadness.
George Zimmerman got away with murder, but you can't get away from God.
She was known only as Juror B29, but now she's willing to give you her first name, Maddy. She's broken her silence, speaking with ABC's Robin Roberts about her part in acquitting George Zimmerman in the death of Trayvon Martin.
My first vote was second-degree murder.
How did you go from, in 9 hours, from feeling he was guilty of second-degree murder to not guilty?
It was hard. A lot of us had wanted to find something bad, something that we could connect to the law, because for myself, he's guilty.
He's guilty of?
Killing Trayvon Martin. But we couldn't prove that intentionally he killed him. And that's the way that the law was read to me.
The nurse's aide and mother of 8 says she struggled with reconciling the law with her heart.
I want Trayvon's mom to know that I'm hurting. And if she thought that nobody cared about her son, I could speak for myself. I do care. I couldn't do anything about it. And I felt like I let a lot of people down. If I would have used my heart, I probably would have went a hung jury.
Maddy never planned to come forward, but after another juror spoke in a way that didn't reflect her feelings, she said she felt she needed to get this message across.
Trayvon Martin will always be in my heart.
In response, Trayvon Martin's mother released a statement after Maddy spoke out. Quote, "It is devastating for my family to hear the comments from Juror B29, comments which we already knew in our hearts to be true, that George Zimmerman literally got away with murder. This new information challenges our nation once again to do everything we can to make sure this never happens to another child." Rich?
Thank you, Andrew. And you know, Dominic, we covered last night that Trayvon Martin's father appeared before Congress yesterday and was talking about the violence that has taken the lives of African-American men and also younger men. But when you hear that, and you hear that words that he got away with murder, I don't know about you. I heard it and I was able to play it again a second time. The first time I had heard that soundbite earlier. Really chilling.
I didn't need to hear that at all. I hope it doesn't sound arrogant, but any of us that followed the case already knew that. It didn't take a juror to speak out to tell us that George Zimmerman got away with murder.
But to hear a juror who was there and the verdict that we first heard, and then to know what must have gone on or think what must have gone on, Mark, within those 9 hours in the jury rooms. But I wanted to get your take tonight on a couple different things of it. One is, did you think, not that justice necessarily was served, but when the verdict was delivered, did you think those 6 women got it right?
Well, they got it right under the law, as Mark O'Mara said in his blog today. I mean, so the justice system certainly worked to that extent. Anytime. And
to that end, I want you to expand more.
Yeah.
When you, after you heard what she said today, and still how she voted on that verdict, do you feel better or worse about how our justice system is?
I feel better about it, but I also don't put a heck of a lot of stock in anything she just said, because she did act in the great tradition and duty of a juror by putting her personal feelings aside and applying the law and correctly recognizing that the state failed to meet its burden under the statutory scheme in Florida. However, if she was serious about what she just said, and she also said a bunch of other things. Yeah. She said, I was committed to holding out, and she also said the case should never have been brought, which is absolutely right, and that's proven by the divergent opinions of this juror and the one from last week. That mirrors the division of opinion in our society about this case, and that division itself shows why they never, ever could have gotten a conviction in this case. That said, if she was, bent on hanging up this jury, she could have done that in any number of ways by, I've used the word nullifying on this program before, and nobody would have been the wiser for it. And the only way they could have gotten her thrown off the jury is if the rest of the jurors said, hey, she's refusing to deliberate. She could have couched her revulsion at Zimmerman's act as a disbelief in the evidence or couched it in evidentiary terms, and there never would have been a verdict, and he could have been retried. She did not do that. So I don't put a lot of stock in this Monday morning quarterbacking that she's doing now. She's absolving herself of some guilt that she has.
Now, do you think the problem, I mean, there's so many things to choose from, Mark, as to what went wrong and how we got to where we were. Was the problem in this stand your ground? Was the problem in this how the prosecution prosecuted the case? Was it the initial investigation that wasn't for 6 weeks here? Was it that they overcharged? Where did you put the fault where they couldn't get a conviction? And I'm talking from the moment he pulled that trigger till obviously when he walked out of the courtroom.
Answer quickly, all of the above, and I don't put fault. Because sometimes there are wrongs for which there are no legal remedies, and this is one of those unfortunate cases. He did not get away with murder. He got away with taking somebody's life. In order for him to have gotten away with murder, they would have had to have shown that he wasn't justified in what he was doing. They failed to do that. He did not get away with murder.
But what he did that night, he couldn't have done in many other places in this country.
That is not, and I checked New York law today, it is not inevitable that he would have been convicted in New York or under an ordinary self-defense scheme. If you believe, and he didn't testify, but the defense team very effectively put his version of events out there through the media.
You've practiced criminal law here in New York. Do you believe that if the same events took place...
I think he would have gotten convicted here in New York.
And don't you think the investigation would have been far different?
I've said this many times before. It's universal, in my view, that police want to make cases. They don't want to let people off regardless of race. They try to make the case and let the jury or the prosecutors decide. I'm not sure they butchered the investigation. If there was proof to bring the case, they would have brought it in the beginning.
But I would like to point out, there is a problem with stand your ground. There has already been another case involving a dead black youngster that has been killed. So we're going round 2 with Trayvon.
And here's the really crazy part about stand your ground is that the Tampa Bay Tribune did a review of 200 of these 200 cases where it was used since it's been put into law. And they found, I mean, it's hard to believe there's a worse case than this, but they found a case where a gang member killed another gang member and was exonerated because he was standing his ground, technically, where a man was killed on his own boat by 2 men. Because they thought he was threatening them. And there are people that were pushing this law originally that are now saying, this has not panned out the way that we thought it was going to. We should change it. And a legislator in Florida introduced a repeal of it the day after Trayvon Martin killer was exonerated. And it's not going to pass. It's going to stay in place. And that's just crazy.
Let me just give you one quick bite. You know that the Stand Your Ground law also immunizes Zimmerman from a civil suit. So everybody's talking about civil suits. If they bring a civil suit and he's able to establish the Stand Your Ground, they get sanctioned against him. I'm not at all convinced that he's going to be held liable civilly.
I know we're going to get to our break here, but there's another case going on, obviously not garnering near the same attention, but it brings up a lot of interesting questions about down deep what we want to see with not just the law, but in terms of, well, let's say justice, and I'm using that in a loosely defined way, how it ought to be applied as it relates to sex offenders. After their prison sentence has expired, should they be put in psych wards or hospitals, or is that double jeopardy? You do the crime, you do the time, you get out, or is it different depending on your crime? We're going to explain why Governor Pataki is at the center of this question, why he was forced to testify on the issue, all that after this.